Right now on Colorado Point of View, your money at the center of a heated debate. Colorado taxpayers getting hundreds of dollars back this summer as prices for everything from gas to groceries skyrocket.
And rather than sit on this money, we know that $400 will help people now.
But this tax rebate comes as the governor signs the biggest budget in state history. We're getting a Colorado point of view from both sides of the aisle on how your tax dollars should be spent.
Joe O'Dea, he's a conservative running for U.S. Senate.
And a major mix-up by a U.S. Senate candidate, how a fighter jet fiasco could shake up the Republican primary. That and more right here, right now on Colorado Point of View. Hey, very good morning to you. I'm Matt Morrow, and this is Colorado Point of View. Right now, lawmakers at the state capitol are putting more money into your pockets, hundreds of dollars as a matter of fact, but they're also spending your money at historic rates. This week, Governor Jared Polis announced that everyone who files tax returns, state income tax returns here in Colorado, will get a refund this summer. Single filers will get $400, joint filers will get $800. Now, typically, this refund would come next spring, but the governor says people need the money and they need it now.
We have the 5th strongest economic rebound in the country. We've recovered more than 100% of the jobs that were lost during the pandemic. But we also know that despite there being good jobs out there, the rising costs are a real challenge for Colorado families. And that's why we're working to get this relief out as soon as possible.
All of this money is going back to you thanks to what is known as the Taxpayer Bill of Rights, better known as TABOR. It's a law that basically caps how much money the state can collect every year and returns the extra cash back to you, the taxpayers. So our data desk found, take a look right here, that since TABOR was approved by Colorado voters in 1992, taxpayers have received 10 refunds. This chart shows it. The green bars at the top right here show when we had a surplus. This is some right here. That was back in the late 90s. There have also been surpluses as of late, and there is set to be another one coming up next year. Now, the last 3 years, again, the state had some big surpluses. Some of that is coming from Uncle Sam, the one who resides in Washington, courtesy of federal COVID money. Now, to be precise, the state got an extra $66 billion in COVID relief the last 2 years. Now, to the politics of your money. Many Republicans are now questioning the governor's timing of these refunds. In fact, Colorado GOP chairwoman Kristi Burton Brown told me this week, and I quote, "For years, these same Democrats have worked to undermine TABOR and fought to increase fees and taxes on everyday Coloradans. However, I'm pleased to see their apparent change of heart, even if it is clearly just an election year game." And to that, the governor says this.
It would make no sense, just because this year happens to be an election year, to delay these refunds close to an additional year for 9 or 10 more months when people need it now.
Well, then there is the state budget, the biggest in history. It just so happened the governor signed that a few hours after the announcement of the tax refunds. The budget comes to a whopping $36.5 billion, up about $2 billion from just last year. Now that you have some perspective about what the state is doing with your money, let's get some Colorado point of view from two very different perspectives. Scott Wasserman is the president of the Bell Policy Center here in Denver, and George Brockler is with the Common Sense Institute and the former district attorney for the 18th Judicial District, a contributor to Fox 31 as well. Gentlemen, thank you for being here. There is a lot to go over. When we're talking about your money, I think right now where we're looking, things couldn't be more important. The timing of these refunds. What do you make of it, Scott?
Well, I mean, I think, you know, the relief couldn't come at a better time. I think there are two major changes that are happening here. One is that they are changing the timing of the TABOR rebate to make it more immediate for people. I think that, you know, inflation and other issues merit this kind of scheduling. I think the other difference, and this is really important, I hope we talk more about it, is that this is making the rebate mechanism fairer. It is taking rebates that would have otherwise gone to very wealthy Coloradans and making sure that more of those rebates go to people who really need it. And that is a very important change because that unfairness is baked into all of TABOR, and I hope that's something we can talk about.
Absolutely. George, what do you make of this?
I think it's interesting because, as you know, Scott and the governor were campaigners against us getting back any of this money at all just a few years ago, saying we need an extra $1 billion for government every single year. It turns out we're getting about an extra $2 billion for government every year since then. And the idea that we're now going to, I think the checks actually show up with your ballot. I think what they do is they actually take the $400, it's signed by Governor Polis himself, maybe Dave Young, and then it's put into a ballot and mailed to you. I think it's disingenuous, but I'm glad to see it happen.
All right, he says that tongue-in-cheek. Do you agree with Scott when he says that the refunds are getting more equitable to people who are, say, middle and low income as opposed to very high earners?
No. I mean, the purpose of Tabor is to refund the taxes in the proportion in which they were paid. It was intended to be you pay a lot of taxes, you get more of the refund back. We had these 6 tiers, and frankly, if this were a matter of principle for the long term, the Democrats in charge would lock that into place forever. Instead, they've said only for purposes of this election year gimmick are we going to make it $400 per person.
All right, and of course they're doing it early, which we talked about. I want to talk about the state budget in general, property tax especially, which is going to be a hot topic as we go through. Take a look at some of the state budget, and when we look at compared to, say, other state budgets all across the country. Colorado, basically, in terms of growth, you see it right here, has gone up just a little bit. I know it's hard to see. We'll get a look at it right here. But Colorado is basically in the middle of the state budget per capita in terms of spending. I guess bottom line, are we spending too much money, and should more money be returned to people? Scott?
Yeah, I mean, let's be really clear. When we talk about a Tabor surplus, that's not extra money. There's an arbitrary cap that we've had in place for 25, 30 years that's been limiting the amount of money that our state can spend on critical things like schools, transportation, mental health. Coloradans know all this because they see these deficiencies in their communities. So what we're having this year is a very unique and one-time budget. We are headed for over the next 2 years up against that arbitrary cap, and we won't be able to fund our schools at a level that people expect. We won't be able to find a sustainable revenue source for transportation. So in point of fact, I think that it would be highly misleading to look at our budget in this year alone, because we're seeing one-time savings from 2 years ago cuts, and we're also seeing a huge spike and a huge growth in revenue, and of course that's going over our revenue cap, even as we have underfunded our schools, our roads, our mental health services, the list goes on.
But is it still possible, George, to you, that you could still fund what a lot of people see as important and agree are important issues, and say maybe give more money back and take some money for other areas? And basically, you know, the legislature has direct control of about $16 billion of the state budget. Could they reallocate some of that and say maybe we need to not have so many government offices?
It's a wicked smart question to ask, because this is about priorities. I mean, look, if you look at education alone, we're spending, what, 11% more in K through 12 education and higher education this year. But for K through 12, despite that 11% increase, there's only a 6% increase in per pupil spending. That other 5% is money that's going to education but not getting into the classroom. That's not a lack of money. That's a lack of prioritization and a lack of getting the right money to the right people.
Okay, let's
Matt,
talk
I just need to point out, I mean, we're 47th in the nation in terms of per pupil spending, and the fact that George just gave you is incredibly misleading. If you look at the proportion of spending on pupils in the classroom versus administrative costs, we are just like every other state in the nation, and what I think makes Colorado stand out across the nation is how much we underspend per pupil, and I think Coloradans who send their kids to school know this.
I do. I send my kids to school, and they get an awesome education.
Public school?
Public school. All 4 have all gone through public school. I presume Scott's too.
Okay, let's talk real quickly. Property tax and the potential for lowering it. There's some talk at the Capitol right now that Democrats and Governor Jared Polis are in a rush to get something done before it goes to the voters. What do you think needs to be done with property taxes, and how should that be done?
Yeah, I think that we could do a cap. We could have done it right at the beginning, something that would alleviate this exploding market that we see for real estate. It was something the governor called for way back in January. I can't imagine how we got to the end of April and still haven't done it.
Okay, there are potential, Scott, for some ballot measures that would permanently cap property taxes, maybe costing the state over $1 billion. Should that go to the voters? Should the legislature do something right now, or should we stay at the status quo?
Yeah, I mean, there's no question we've got a housing supply problem in this state. I think the question everyone needs to ask is, are the proposals at the title board designed to build more housing and alleviate the housing crisis, or are they just going to create more problems for our local communities? Remember, your property taxes go to those schools we were talking about earlier. Local share has been going down over the years, meaning the state has had to backfill more. Remember, your property taxes pay for fire and public safety, big discussions around underfunding there. So when we talk about a $1.5 billion hit per year to communities, that is going to impact local services. I think what we should be talking about is something that is targeted, that is temporary, and responsibly funded. How are you going to backfill those losses to communities and make sure that the right people who are struggling to get into $400,000 homes, that those are the ones that get the property relief, and not people who have $2 million homes here in Colorado.
Do you know where a $400,000 home is in Denver?
I read today. I
think that's the million-dollar question today.
I read today that $300,000 homes have gone extinct, and that $400,000 homes are already almost extinct. And so we do have a housing problem, but none of the proposals at the title board fix any of that.
Yeah, I believe the average in Denver is now over $700,000.
Wow. Yes.
Very quickly, George, last word to you on this.
Yeah, I just think that the idea here that we're going to continue to play this class warfare game and say that even though people who are earning more, working more, creating more jobs, spending more, creating more tax base, they're entitled to less and less and less because of a market that's been largely created by factors, some of which are beyond the control of government, some are firmly in their control. I just think that's the kind of class warfare thing Coloradans are over.
Now,
I just have to point out, 60% of Coloradans think that people who make over $500,000 a year shouldn't get tax cuts. So I appreciate that, but they shouldn't be getting tax
Put it
relief.
on the ballot.
And that'll let the voters decide. Scott Wasserman from the Bell Policy Center, George Brockler, a Fox 31 contributor from the Common Sense Institute. Gentlemen, thank you so much for being here. I appreciate the discussion. Also at the Capitol this week, Governor Jared Polis signed a bill to get universal pre-K off the ground. It creates a new department, this one of early childhood. As Gabrielle Franklin tells us, some are concerned that it's not enough help for parents. Take a look.
I think it's a big deal for Colorado.
Shelly Anderson Stiegel has worked in early education for more than 25 years. She's worked at Clayton Early Learning in Denver for 21 of those years.
We serve children birth to 5. Most of our children receive multiple sources of funding to provide education here.
It's now the law. Congratulations.
The measure Governor Polis signed into law will oversee the department. Supporters say it should save Colorado families an average of $4,300 a year, but the state is only covering the cost for 10 hours a week per child, a concern for some who worry parents could still struggle with the cost.
This provides them with those 10 hours or 10 hours in funding so that they can now afford part-day preschool. For those families who use blended and braided funding sources, like the children that come to school here, this is additional support for us to provide more programming for those families.
The state's current preschool program serves more than 29,000 children who may be at risk for struggling in school later down the road without early intervention. Leaders are hoping an additional 10 free hours on top of assistance they already receive will help more students achieve full-time status. Anderson Stiegel says people should look at the launch of the state's program as a stepping stone to a brighter future for more little ones.
Preschool is important. I also think that we're recognizing that it's important for the workforce. Parents can't go to work if they don't have care for their child. And so there's early care and education, and then there's preschool. And so this is just like one step closer to universal preschool full day.
And teachers know they may see more students as a result of the new program, but they're hoping the launch of Universal Pre-K will kickstart a push to get teachers more benefits and help end their shortage. Outside the state capitol, Gabrielle Franklin, Colorado Point of View.
All right, up next, these Republican U.S. Senate candidates right here in Colorado square off over some campaign controversies. Our political panel weighs in on that, and the governor's race might be getting a little more crowded. Stay right there.
He built his construction company from the ground up, employing hundreds of Coloradans. He's running for the Senate to cut the debt, stop inflation, support the police and military.
That is an ad from Republican U.S. Senate candidate Joe O'Dea. It's getting quite a bit of attention this week here in Colorado and all around the country for a major military mistake. You might not have noticed, but take a closer look right here. It's a freeze frame from the ad. These military jets are from Russia. They're Russian military jets. The ad was quickly re-edited with U.S. fighter jets. O'Dea's opponent, State Representative Ron Hanks, primary opponent that is, says, and I quote here, "Every rookie politician makes mistakes." We asked O'Dea's campaign about the ad. Spokesman tells us, and I quote here, they owned it. It was an error. 100% we own that. They go on to say, we also know, however, that voters care a, quote, hell of a lot more about Michael Bennet voting with Vladimir Putin, an authoritarian thug, when he, Bennett, voted against bipartisan sanctions on the Nord Stream 2 pipeline this year. But we are not done with the campaign controversy just yet. Hanks might need a dose of his own medicine because one of his campaign videos, not necessarily an ad, shows Canadian police officers, and it mentions a local business that you saw right there, then shows a picture of downtown Milwaukee, Wisconsin. So what does all this mean for the Senate race and the GOP primary? Our political panel has some answers. Democratic strategist, White House and gubernatorial advisor Andy Boyan, Republican strategist, the director of the Advanced Colorado Institute, Michael Fields. Michael, both of these candidates from the Republican Party, your take on it, is it going to hurt them?
No, I don't think it does. I think this is something that's entertaining for people that are watching this super closely. But I think more policies matter. When it comes to the Russia issue, it is Joe O'Dea is more pro-Ukrainian. Ron Hanks said that that we shouldn't be doing as much as we are for Ukraine. Michael Bennet voted against the Nord Stream 2 pipeline sanctions. I think people care about where your positions actually are. There's serious things going on right now. We are heading into a point of negative GDP growth and high inflation. People care about their pocketbooks. They care about what the positions that these Senate candidates have, and therefore I think that's what matters way more than if something is in an ad that is from another city or whatever it is.
All right, Andy, I'll give you a quick second to respond here in just a second. But should the O'Dea campaign be a little more cognizant? Does it show that maybe they're not paying attention to detail when they go ahead and do this? I imagine a number of people review these ads before they go public.
I mean, absolutely, and they said that they own the mistake. It was an ad that never aired. I mean, this thing didn't even get up. They made that adjustment. No doubt that in a campaign, everything is under scrutiny. And now you're talking for a couple days about that instead of about the economic situation that the country's facing, crime, immigration, everything else. But I think ultimately, we're several months until the election. People are going to be looking at what are your positions? What have you done for Colorado? Are you standing up for the state or not? And I don't think Michael Bennet has done that. I think he's failed in so many ways.
Okay, voters, of course, will decide that. Andy, real quickly, I want you to respond to what Joe O'Dea's campaign said. Voters care, quote, a hell of a lot more about Michael Bennet voting with Vladimir Putin. He voted against the bipartisan sanctions on the Nord Stream 2 pipeline this year. Full transparency, Andy is a contributor and works with the state Democratic Party. Are you concerned about this for Michael Bennet, that what they're saying here?
No, I mean, we can look at a senator's record over 6, 12, 18 years, 2, 3 terms, and figure out where he or she really, truly is aligned. And I think Michael Bennet, there's no question that he's a true Coloradan and fights for Colorado every day. What I think is interesting about the ad is, yes, everybody makes mistakes, but Michael's use of the word entertaining, I find borderline offensive, because it really is, we are fighting to arm the Ukrainians. We asked for another $33 billion today to fight the Ukrainians against Russians. There's nothing entertaining about this. Mistakes are made in campaigns every day. I've been in a lot of them. I've made a lot of them. But let me tell you, at the end of the day, it really matters when you pay attention. And this shows clearly that O'Dea isn't paying attention. And do you want him to run the state at a time that's so critical right now for the state to be rebounded and get in a better position? Polis is on his way to doing that in re-election. And I think O'Dea is a serious candidate, even though Hanks, as a frontrunner, had to correct O'Dea on the fighter jet issue. It still matters. And the use of the word entertaining, the use of idea that this is somehow compromised in the election really is incongruent with how Coloradans feel. Look, this is a critical issue.
Andy,
absolutely critical.
The whole reason that
the word, I should just say real quickly, it was authoritarian. He said authoritarian.
Yep.
The whole reason that Russia is invading Ukraine partially is because of the weakness that we showed in Afghanistan. The fact that we weren't willing to stand up, and we cut and ran from Afghanistan, left our allies there. You look at that, emboldened Putin in order to do that. Who was supporting that? Michael Bennet. Michael Bennet said that it was a good job that Biden
at least we had the guts to get out.
So
at least we had the guts to get out, and in due time. So thank God our troops are home and safe.
It was a total disaster. Michael Bennet supported it.
They're home. Our troops lives are home, and that's important.
Just very last point on this, and we have to move on. But wasn't it the former administration that basically set the date and set the timeline for the withdrawal from Afghanistan?
No doubt. But
yes, it happened under the president's
thing that changed
watch.
and how you do it is what matters, right? The fact that we're leaving military, equipment there for them to use, the fact that we got out in the way that we did, it was a total disaster.
Okay.
And that's something that Michael Bennett
The reality
and Joe
is
Biden
this is
own.
a pivot. This is a pivot for Michael to get away from the real, true action that if this is the best Republicans can do in a U.S. Senate race, the Republicans are in trouble.
Okay, let's move on to the governor's race very quickly here. 2 Republicans we know made the ballot for the primary in June. One candidate who narrowly missed the ballot could change parties. The Colorado Times Recorder reports that Danielle Neuschwanger could join the Constitution Party, be the nominee. She may go ahead and make that happen this weekend. She got 27% of the vote at the state assembly earlier this month. She needed 30. She claims, by the way, the way the votes were counted were, guess what? She says they were rigged. She says she has proof, but has not provided it just yet. Bottom line, she goes up, and let's say now you have Greg Lopez or Heidi Ganahl. One of them is going to win the primary.
Right.
Now all of a sudden you have another conservative candidate on the ballot. Does that hurt Polis? Does it hurt basically more conservatives?
Well, I think what it does is it gives people an alternative choice. Really, if it was a Republican nominee and a Democratic nominee, it's a pretty good choice. But like the Ross Perot scenario in 1992,
yes,
it really has a third-party candidate, really has an influence in both parties, and it particularly in this issue with somebody of an independent status really may have more trouble with Republicans than Democrats. Really, it might divide the Republican Party further.
Okay, real quick.
I just disagree in the fact that, there are going to be more people that run for gubernatorial office. It's not just going to be the 3 of them on there. There's going to be many people on. And I think, Danielle's name ID is probably 1 or 2%. I don't think it has much of an impact at all. I think Republicans are going to have a strong candidate. It's going to be, picking between that candidate and Jared Polis with
Hopefully
a bunch
they'll know
of
more
other,
about the military by the time
with a bunch
governor.
of other, candidates on the ballot. So I don't think it has much of an impact at all.
All right, I'd love to continue this. That's all we have time for this morning. It's great to see you, Andy
Great
Boy
to
and
see
Michael
you.
Fields.
Thank you.
Up next, a lawsuit against a fertility doctor on the Western Slope leads to legislators tackling an important issue at the state capitol. That's in your Rocky Mountain Roundup next. We are back on Colorado Point of View this morning with this story. A fertility doctor out on the Western Slope in Grand Junction who inseminated patients with his own sperm, now liable in a lawsuit and also leading to change right here at the state capitol. That's in our Rocky Mountain Roundup.
I'm Austin Sack with KRIX 5 News in Grand Junction. Fertility doctor Paul B. Jones is found liable after using his own sperm to artificially inseminate multiple women without their consent at Women's Health Care of Western Colorado in Grand Junction. Now the families will be awarded $8.75 million in compensatory and punitive damages. While families testified, we caught up with State Representative Janice Rich, a prime sponsor of the Misuse of Human Reproductive Materials bill signed as law in 2020. And results in a Class 6 felony. In Grand Junction, I'm Austin Sack, Colorado Point of View.
All right, Austin, thank you so much. That'll do it for this morning here on Colorado Point of View. Thank you so much for joining us. I'll be back here next week, same time. We'll see you then. Have a great weekend.